So I'm in the world of business. I'm here to take you through my entrepreneurship journey. It's been great for me. I think in fact, it's been phenomenal. And I hope that I could encourage a lot of you to get into entrepreneurship. That would be my goal. So I come from a middle class family. My father was in the forces, and I think I'm quite privileged to come from such a background, because that background exposed me to many things which normally you wouldn't get. I got to travel all over India. I got to interact with some of the best people ever. I was exposed to sports and all kinds of sports, whether it was the extreme sports, deep sea diving, sailing. Army had everything, and it had it in abundance, so there was no issue. Whether it was the more delicate sport like golf, sorry, I don't mean delicate, but yeah. So the thing is that I think that I got this well-rounded personality primarily because of the forces background. And in the army, you always lead an adventurous life, so I was very keen to become a fighter pilot. Unfortunately, because I come from a family of pilots, my dad was a chopper pilot, but I couldn't, and I ended up, because LASIK surgery was not an option in those days. So the family got together and we all decided that hotels was a good option. I could actually get into hotels, and it had a promising future. Now, as middle class, we're all groomed to actually get into a job. So I got into hotels, and the minute I went to the hotels and I started working, I detested it from day one. Yeah, I just didn't like it. It was torturous for me. It was mentally draining, if you ask me, and it was not stimulating enough. I was quite fed up, and I don't know why, but in those times, even established chains, they wanted to make sure that you went and did some torturous shifts, and they took some sadistic pleasure in making you work for 20 hours. Now, I'm a person who doesn't mind working hard, but when there's no work and you literally have to be there, it's a problem. And for me, I think the most important thing is that if you can't pursue your passion and your interest in life, then there's actually no point even getting into a job. So I decided that would be the end of the job. But it's not that easy, because when you enter the world of entrepreneurship, there's a world of difference, right? My parents were very supportive. In fact, I'm very thankful to my mom, who literally walked down the corridor and met the general manager and blasted the living daylight out of him for making me work hard here. I actually, but it gave me a lot of confidence, because why it gave me confidence? Because my parents were with me, come what may. And we come from middle class background, where always job security is one of the most important issues. And here was my mother, who could actually take on my general manager. So it was fantastic. So that gave me a lot of confidence in life. Post that, I said, let's get into entrepreneurship. It was not easy, very, very tough getting into entrepreneurship, because in India, there were no courses that time which could actually teach you. You couldn't really approach people and ask them about entrepreneurship. So it was a little tough. But entrepreneurship is not like a course which you can study and then cram it, and then next day you can score very high marks. That's how the education system in India unfortunately works. But it's like a sport. You've got to gradually learn it. And the better you become, the more you do it, the better you become. So literally I went into entrepreneurship, and I think it was one of the best decisions that I ever made in my life. Just to give you I started off, I used to have a band earlier, so I started the nightclub business. The nightclub business was a lot of fun. My parents again helped me, they gave me some money, but obviously that money was not good enough, so I had to reach out to people, and they invested in me because they thought that I had a potential to do well and to create good products. So I did my first nightclub in Delhi. Delhi was very different that time. Delhi was more into Bollywood music, and house music was something that Delhi had not really heard of in those times. So I introduced it, and it was just a pleasure to actually see what you had imagined come to life. For me, it was the biggest thrill. When I had the nightclub business, I literally thought that I was the owner. But I was the owner, but I was a minority partner. But it gave me immense pleasure, and there was nothing better when I used to wait in the line, and people used to queue up, and then everybody wanted to enter, and a lot of people would try to force their way through. For me, the biggest thrill was when they used to tell me, oh my God, we know the owner, Sohrab Sitaram, so you move away. It was great. There was nothing better than this. But of course, the nightclub business had its own perils. Delhi at that time was a gun-trotting city. A lot of powerful people lived by the syndrome of Bakon and stuff like that. Yeah. So it was not easy. I had literally every sort of gun put on my head. So I can now literally recognize all the guns, right from Colts to pistols to Mausers to everything. But it was something like that. Even the colors were different. Some shocking guy had a silver color gun, somebody had golden color guns, so it was different. And I saw it at up close range. So the thing is that's when I realized that in business, you've got to really be well networked. And it's important because at any point of time, something can happen and you've got to reach out to those people. So that's one of the big learnings for me in business. The business did really well. We went on to create many more restaurants, and there was a time when I was living 15 days in Delhi and 15 days in Goa. I think that's one of the reasons why I got lucky and my wife married me. She really, because Goa is my favorite city and it's a fun city. There could be nothing better. So from there on, look, I was in the business of alcohol, and from there we went on to create the milk business, which you all know. It was Kevinter's, which is a very old world brand. And today, I want to talk about what are some of the learnings, how I created this brand, because I've been requested by a lot of people to tell you what we did for creating this brand. And of course, what are the other business learnings that I've had. So let's start off with the milk business. So anybody who wants to get into business, the first thing, of course, let's start off with the target market. So the target market is the most important. Okay, that's understood because you've got to know who your target market is. Otherwise, there's no point. Otherwise, you'll be all over the place. Now, the second thing, what we did was the product. Now, for me, and what all of you must remember, that is essential to know what is the product that you want to deal in. Now, there are some things that I wanted to make sure. We could have, being a dairy organization, we could have chosen anything. There's butter, ghee, we could have entered into the FMCG business. Anything and everything was possible. But we chose a particular product, and that goes for you. So next time when you think of a business, think of a product where you know there are no geographical barriers. Now, how I want to relate this is, for example, you look at the biryani business today. Okay, and the thing is that in the biryani business, in India, the connotation of biryani is very different. For example, Delhi may have different biryani. Kerala biryani is very different. Calcutta biryani, of course, is very different. So the thing is that there is a geographical barrier. So when you think of business, always think of scale. So always think pan-India, right? So we chose a product which is a milkshake, which had no geographical barriers. So for example, if you look at a Choco Oreo shake, in North India is the same, South India is the same, East is the same, and West is the same. Everywhere is the same. So that helps in scalability. So if you're looking at some business idea, make sure you look at a product which has no geographical barriers. That's important. So that's how we thought. Second, I think the product itself, the milkshake, was a brand that had the milkshake as a product had a lot of personality in itself. If you actually look at the Hollywood movies, you look at the many ads about the milkshake. Milkshake is there literally in every movie. So that's one of the reasons why we decided to move with a product which had a personality on its own. So that's one. These are the geographical barriers. Second is, look, in business, it's extremely important to have an emotional connect with people. And if you don't have the emotional connect, there is literally no point doing the business. So what is the emotional connect that we had? What were the MNCs doing? MNCs were just, a one-time takeaway plastic glasses which were being given to everyone, right? But we decided to go ahead with the glass bottles. Now, when we did the glass bottles, we were actually doing something for the country, something for the communities, and it's extremely important. And that brought us a lot of laurels. There was an emotional connect all of a sudden. Bottles are recyclable. Environment is being harmed. Remember that, but that's the investment in the business. Glass bottles today cost as much as 7 times more than a regular, plastic cup or a paper cup. but it's well worth it because we're saving the environment. And this got a lot of emotional connect. So when you think of business, it's important that you look at the emotional connect that you can perhaps create. Third, we also have this very patriotic, because Kevintas is an Indian brand, and most of the brands that you see which are the cooler, trendier brands, they're all MNCs. So we always showed India as a progressive light, and I think it's very important. Whenever you connect with the youth, always show your own nation in a very progressive light, and I actually mean it here. I mean, I'm not saying for the heck of saying it. So we are not showing India as a world of snake charmers or a country of charpais, but more the digital age, the new age India. So that brought about a lot of patriotism in Kevintas itself. Our fourth theory was that always in business, there's always fatigue that sets in. For example, even the bottle, you can't just carry it home. So what did we do? So all the bottles, there's something. Whenever there's a new festival, there's a different bottle. Whenever there's an event, there's a different bottle. So we created bottles like a fridge magnet. Our aim was that whenever people travel, and they travel to different cities. By the way, you must know that in certain, the bottles that you get in Delhi, you will not get in Calcutta. The bottles you get in Calcutta, you won't get in Nairobi. They're all different bottles, right? So we made it into a collector's item. And that's something that works. It's very important. Product innovation, of course, is important, but creating something which, but there's lots you can do in innovation apart from the product also. So that's something we did. And, when we did all this and we launched our brand, it was a runaway success. Kevintas has done really well today. If you look at it, we have around 336 outlets. It seemed like an age-old brand, but the story is it's a 3-year story. So in 3 years, we've been able to do about 336 outlets. And in fact, it's one of the fastest growing QSR brands in India. So that's the power of actually thinking through and creating a business. But more so, it's not just a generalized, the more generalized learnings is something that I want to share with you too. And I give you a story about every learning that I've had. So number one, when you look at a business, you should look at scalability. It's the most important thing. Without scale, the business is nothing, right? So here's what, and you realize that the scalability in India comes through communities, okay? How you can interact with communities. North is so different, East is different, West is different. Everything is different, right? So it's not as easy as you want to scale up in other countries. And let me give you a small story here. If you look at the British Army, once upon a time, there were a lot of Indians working for the army, right? But they were not patriotic. So what did the British do? They knew that people value communities. So they started making communities. You had the Sikh regiment, right, where all the Sikhs were there. You've got the Bengal sappers. Today also those communities are true. You've got the Bengal sappers, you've got the Sikh regiment, you've got the Grenadiers. Each of these, you've got Gurkhas. So each of these communities were given the war cry. Each of them were given a different uniform. They were even allowed to carry their own weapon. All of a sudden things changed. Okay, now all of a sudden people who were not that patriotic about the country were extremely patriotic about their community, right? So what I'm saying, and that still exists. Today also in the Indian Army, all the fighting arms are community based, right? And that is what one has to learn. So in business also, when you look at scale, it's important that when you go to different communities, you've got to become a part of those communities. How we became a part of the communities was actually, so when we say, an example, when we launched in Calcutta, we had the image of Rabindranath Tagore on the bottle. Similar, so forth. We went to Kenya, we had the big five, because everybody goes there, the big five animals, because everybody goes there, right? So that was our way of getting into community. So whenever you think of business and you think of scale, always think, in India especially, how will you reach out to the various communities and become a part of those communities? It's extremely important. Second, I'm sure one of these days you'll all set up an office and you'll have a flourishing business. But just remember one thing, yeah, we travel to different countries. You go to China, everybody says, oh my God, yeah, China is 50 years ahead of India. You go to America, America is 100 years, some countries 1,000 years ahead. All you keep hearing is that India is really bad and everybody else has progressed. But there is one thing that we have here that none of these countries have, and I think we are 2,000 years ahead where that is concerned, and that's family, right? We believe in family values. It's extremely important. If we believe in family values, your job or your business has to be reflective of that. So when you create a business, make sure that the business itself becomes a part or an extension of the family itself, which is very important. There are certain occasions, Diwali, Holi, all these are very important occasions to be with your employees, and they always look forward to something. They always look at, that you are there to help them. So that's the feeling you need to create. You need to say hello, hi. Remember that in India, everybody has to be treated, especially the employees, they need to be treated like assets. They're not a number on the balance sheet that you do some cost reduction on, like it happened in so many MNCs. So that's the mindset which you should have when you create a business. I think one very important learning for me has also been that people respect hierarchies in India. Okay, and it's really important. We celebrate every occasion. So whenever we get promoted, we are celebrating. And hierarchy is very important. It may sound funny, and anybody coming from the West may not understand how important, hierarchy is. For example, even in this room, if I look at all of us who are sitting in front, we're all sitting in sofas. You were sitting on chairs, right? Plastic chairs. So this is hierarchy, right? So I'm going to give you another example. So I had a driver. Actually, let me give you the example of my cook first, yeah. So because I had restaurants and this cook was just making Indian food, I want to have something more exotic. So I sent him to one of my restaurants to get trained. So the guy went there, got trained, came back. All of a sudden I told him he made some great food, yeah, very impressed and happy. But the dishes were not being washed. So I asked him what the hell happened here. He said, yeah, I've been promoted from a cook to a chef. Why should I wash the dishes now? It doesn't make sense, right? So it's important to understand that with hierarchy, every time the promotion is there, you need to give that something more. Similarly, I could give you an example of my driver. So I want to buy, which was a luxury car. And all of a sudden that guy came to me saying that, listen, now you'll have to give me uniforms. I said, why do you need uniforms here? He said, because now my status has been elevated and I'm driving a far superior car than what you had, right? So I need uniforms. Secondly, I need a guy who will clean the car and wash the car because I'm not going to do it, right? So the point is that it's very important that people like us don't try to change things here. Don't try to say, okay, you've become a chef, now you'll also have to clean the dishes, you have to do that. There is no point looking at that. We come from a community, at least in our lifetime, it's very difficult to change this. So why fight it here? And there is no need to fight it, and that's what makes us Indians, and that's the emotional connect we have with people here, and that's what we take pride in. So recognize that fact. It's very important. I think another important thing is that you've got to be absolutely impartial. It was very difficult for me to create an environment which is absolutely impartial, but it's extremely important in business. People get superseded, and they get superseded all the time, right? But they will only take it if they know that somebody else who's truly better has made it and they haven't made it. So extremely important. He doesn't need to get promoted if he's the current boyfriend of the general manager. That's not the way. Of the general manager's wife, sorry. So the thing is that it's of immense value that we need to make sure that these things are respected where the Indian entrepreneurship model is concerned. Lastly, I think what is really important is that the world is changing. You've got to stay relevant, and you've got to be with the times. What's happening? Very soon, gone will be the 5-day work week. Things are looking very different. Technology is changing everything. Nowadays, you only look at Internet of Things. You hear 5G. Big data analysis, a lot of these things are coming through, right? So people who are skilled in this will be the ones who progress, and it's important that all of you should spend a lot of time upskilling yourself. We at our organization, actually if you look at me, now I put in only about 40-50% in the regular work that I'm doing, and the remaining 50% of the work is actually going into just upskilling for the future. And I think that's exactly what we're going to change for our employees also, right? So that's important. So these are some of the issues and things that I've learned, and I think that I must tell you. Look, entrepreneurship is fantastic. It's one of the best things that you could possibly do. If you look at my example, my work, in fact, my life used to be a part of my work. when I was working earlier. But now it's different. So my work has become a part of my life. I've got enough time to pursue all my passions, all my interests. If I want to work for 20 hours, I can work for 20 hours. If I want to work for 2 hours, I can work for 2 hours. But the business continues. So I would say there's nothing better, and this is the right time to get into entrepreneurship. You know, India actually needs a lot of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of unemployment, and we are the people who are going to solve it. The government is not going to solve unemployment issues. So it's important that all of us create jobs for people, and there's no better feeling here. I mean, sure, somewhere down the line, business may be successful, may not be successful, but there's no better feeling than creating a life for someone and creating a successful business. It's a high that you can't easily get. So I would encourage all of you to build a life and not just live by it. Thank you very much.